how about we go from Ben Shapiro to analyzing a different kind of conservative? And Ben Shapiro is the intellectual anti-Trump conservative. Let's take a look at the intellectual pro-Trump conservative. This is a holiday-themed reading entry that comes courtesy of Mark Bauerlein, who you may remember from a previous reading series about how he reprimanded some lads on an airplane for cursing in public.
Oh, that guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
How do
fucking
you
passenger
keep all of these fucking nerds straight? How do you have like an encyclopedic knowledge of these incredibly boring, scoldy, prim men? How do you even... Could you pick them out of a lineup? Because they all have the same fucking porridge face.
Amber, everybody has one special thing. Everybody has one special thing.
This is your special thing?
I'm a big, bright, shining star.
For me, Bauerlein is only memorable because he has that lanyard dick fucking bow tie dipshit affect and the academic background, but he likes Trump. And he gets pseudo intellectual arguments.
Yeah, he's an English professor.
Yeah.
That's been like, I'm the only one of my colleagues who loves Trump, and here's why. And he's carved out.
Where does he teach?
Let me scroll down. He at Emory University, and is senior editor at First Things.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So he wrote an article for Politico called "This is what it's like to be the only Trump fan at Thanksgiving dinner." Enough with the crazy uncle jokes. Here's what it's like to be the black sheep at the table. So he's going to give you a perspective from someone who's been, unfairly maligned, attacked,
made to eat over the sink.
Yeah. So here we go. Mark Bauerlein. He goes, "In my household, when the holidays come, the usual family members plus a friend or two gather. We have 3 generations at the table, 2 female 80-year-olds, some 50-year-olds, and the millennials. Only one of us is a Trump supporter. This is, after all, a family of professionals in a northeastern coastal city. But it takes only one Trumper to turn a genial dinner into an emotional contest of wills." Just going to stop right there. I'm going to say, even without his political opinions that he's formed of recent, my guess is he was probably unpleasant to be around at any family function, even when he was a big Clinton supporter.
Yeah.
He's like,
just so you know, if you're the person storming out of the Thanksgiving dinner, it doesn't matter what your politics are. You probably are just awful.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what he's going to say about Trump. Just the stories about the ruffians who he dressed down at the mall. That's going to be annoying enough.
So he goes, it doesn't matter that the holidays call for love and gratitude. We may try to talk about other things, our lives, our jobs, the weather, but Trump won't go unmentioned. The feelings he arouses are too stormy. This week we should expect lots of politics along with our turkey and stuffing. Well, some of us won't even be having at least one of those things.
People, though.
Outsmarted you all.
Who are these people, though? I think people have kind of gotten over that horrible period of content millery where it's like how to deal with your conservative family.
Oh no, there's more this year too. There
really?
Are 2 or 3 more. Yep.
Just
every
fucking
year.
eat, you bitch! For Christ's sake, do you know what the world is like? You can't stomach your uncle for a fucking Thanksgiving. He's gonna fall asleep in 10 minutes anyway.
Yeah. The fact is that the thing about conservative boomer drunk uncle stereotype is that they are not going to let it go. They initiate it. They want to get you upset. They're antagonistic. They want to be antagonistic.
Yeah, I have one of those.
They don't want
and at some point I just said, "Why are you ruining Thanksgiving right now?" And he immediately shut up because he was extremely embarrassed.
Yeah. But that's the only way to do it. You have to shame them.
You have to point out, by the way, I know what you're doing.
Yeah. Because that's what they do, is they like it. They're not trying to just have their dinner in peace. Owning you and making you upset, as we've been talking about, is the only political praxis they have.
Yeah.
So Mark writes, last year at Thanksgiving, 2 weeks after the big surprise, it wasn't so bad. Hillary Clinton's supporters were still in shock. President Barack Obama had 2 months to go. Some on the left believed that surely something would emerge between then and the inauguration that would keep the unthinkable from happening. And there were outlets for liberal dismay and fear, too. Marches to join and websites on which to vent. I stepped out onto Manhattan's 2nd Avenue around that time and watched a small parade heading north, I presume to one of Trump's East Side towers. They were softly singing, "We shall overcome."
No, you won't, motherfuckers.
The mood at the 2016 holiday table then was disbelief, not outrage. A year later, though, he's still there. Roe is in trouble, and so are trans soldiers and public schools and the environment, and white supremacists are emboldened. I think he's saying this all sarcastically.
But that's all literally true.
He goes, I'm the inexplicable presence in the room, a specimen of something that shouldn't be. How in the world can an educated person, a teacher for goodness sake, back such a stupid, bigoted, alpha male blowhard? Okay, that's the tell there at the end,
like
where he's
male,
setting it up, and he's like for the readers of the audience, that his liberal relatives don't like Trump because he's an alpha male.
He's too butch.
This mincing oath that we've discussed this at length already. The idea that he is some kind of alpha male, one of the chintziest, fucking fayest weirdos alive.
Cartwheeling pan.
a fucking cubic ham in a diaper. Like flitting about the White House and complaining about TV ratings. Nobody, including this guy's lib family, is threatened by his masculinity.
Yeah.
He is
mad at Rosie O'Donnell and teasing his hair.
That's the question that won't go away. My mother will talk about his macho manner.
No, she won't.
Oh, God,
that's not happening.
He's not having.
There's no account, by the way, of any one of these things, like from any side, that you can ever really trust, because someone's like, you know what I think the world needs to hear about? Why my holidays are uniquely stressful. It's like, I don't believe anything that you say. It's like Rashomon. I want to hear everyone fucking like give their account of what actually happened.
Yeah, there's a lot of Maureen Todd shit that goes on in recounting holiday.
His mother was actually spending most of the holiday talking about Randy Macho Man Savage, and he extrapolated from there.
He's a bit too macho.
Yeah, brother. The cream of the crop promo is, for me, the best promo of all time.
My sister will recount the latest fumbles by his cabinet. My nephew and his wife will fret over what he'll do to science. Everything runs smoothly until I say, didn't you love Trump's speech in Warsaw? Isn't it great to have a leader willing to praise Western civilization?
Oh, wait a minute. So he's acting like
policies.
you try. See, this is what they're all like. Oh, I'm just trying to have a nice conversation at dinner. Hey, that thing about the war of civilizations, that was pretty cool. It's so fucking disingenuous.
Okay, but honestly, none of this stuff ever happened.
Yeah, of course.
That's the most important thing that as we get angry at these things, to remember that none of this ever happened.
Absolutely not.
He ate a lean turkey hungry man dinner by himself for Thanksgiving.
Even his recounting of this, where he's the good guy, it still starts with him making an asshole provocative comment.
Yeah.
And the actual content of his comment is hilarious too. What he should have said was, didn't you see all the people inspired by Trump's speech marching in Poland last week? Doesn't it fill your heart to know that they all love Western civilization so much? Pass the gravy. So that does it. The communal spell is broken. I've ruined Thanksgiving. Forget the Warsaw speech. Yeah, no, like everyone else in America, you forgot. Yeah, forget the Warsaw speech. It doesn't matter except to anyone but fucking weirdo Nazis who think it's like a little tip of the cap to them.
Yeah, but also that was just like deranged. Like they're all like, oh, I'm concerned about this policy. I'm concerned about this funding. And he's like, yeah, but were we all having a great time when he made that speech? It's like his support for him comes not in the form of a defense of policies or politics, but of a general. He digs his vibe.
Yep. Well, this is what he says,
and the things that make people like his family mad.
Well, what he says here, isn't it great to have a leader willing to praise Western civilization? I'm sorry.
And then they made me sit at the kids' table.
It goes back to this thing again, like, did Obama or really never praise Western civilization? I seem to remember every fucking speech he gave, he'd be like, "Oh, America's great. Oh, our founding father."
Yeah,
did I misremember
Western
that?
civilization as a concept more than actual traditional patriotism, because America is such a pliant kind of concept, and we've done so well historically talking about a nation of immigrants, and it was like this utopian project where there's no way to actually functionally be a white nationalist in America because they came here. So like the blood and soil thing doesn't work. So they have to talk about Western civilization because it's essentially a fucking revisionist project what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Because Richard Spencer isn't going back to England or whatever. You know, he's essentially starting a white colony in a not white place.
Well, it's all about the most lazy, like, elementary school signifiers of classiness. Like Trump himself in that speech said, "Our great symphonies." They all love classical music and sculpture. And there's nothing behind, or like fucking when nitwit Paul Joseph Watson shits his pants over some very, very banal neoclassical architecture thing that just has no soul, and it might as well been put up. It might as well be a fucking.
It's just old.
It might as well be a fucking Cheesecake Factory. But oh my god, the pillars, and they just see these signifiers, and it makes them. And it's like. The culture that you're going to create, I can tell just by the way you talk about culture, is going to be a stale replication of old shit that wasn't even the original thing that you're venerating, and it's going to be like living in Vegas.
No, they're going to be trying that, and when they realize no one cares, they're going to reinvest everything in Marvel reboots.
So. Going on here, it says, forget the Warsaw speech. You know, it was only one of the greatest speeches of all time. Yeah. It's the bare fact of dissent that counts. My mother will wrinkle her brow and mutter, "Oh God." The millennials at the table will go blank. Western civilization was dropped as a school subject before they were born. No, it fucking wasn't.
No, it wasn't. Bullshit.
My sister shall return to Trump pulling back on environmental regulation, which she regards as abominable.
Oh, these dizzy broads not wanting to drink lead and
I imagine
carcinogens in their fucking urine.
I imagine similar scenes at holiday tables all across America. According to a recent Reuters poll released earlier this month, nearly a third of American adults will try to avoid political topics during the holidays this year. My family is just one window into understanding why. Any career woman, especially a single one who entered the workforce in 1970, is never going to look at Donald Trump as anything but a sexist bully. She remembers too many ill-mannered bosses and coworkers, condescending males who, when they didn't hit on her, dismissed her or exploited her.
And let's not forget people who were caught on tape bragging about doing sexual assaults. I love how the premise there is that they just have this irrational association between him and piggish like misogyny, and not the fact that he's a fucking admitted sex predator.
My mother made a go of it and put up with a lot. Those humiliations don't fade. Again, she's talking about what his mother had to put up with, as opposed to the things Trump has actually said and done. This is not something to dispute. I spent last New Year's Eve at a faculty party in Massachusetts where a woman who was about 70 described that...
Wait. For New Year's... You had to go to a faculty party.
Yeah, and hang out with 70-year-olds.
He's awesome. This guy's got a lot of social engagements. This was clearly the best offer
I like to party with my coworkers.
I love hanging out with a bunch of people waiting for death. and talking about fucking Gordon Lish.
This anecdote is boring. He just uses it as an example. He just uses it as an excuse to quote Yeats, basically. And guess what? The Yeats line that everybody knows.
Let me guess. The center cannot hold?
What rough beast. It's our come round at last.
Wow.
So going back to forget the New Year's party. Going back to Thanksgiving.
The one Yeats poem every dullard on earth knows because somebody quoted it in like a Schwarzenegger movie.
I think the Joker quoted it at one point.
Yeah, the Joker said
the young ones at the holiday table have a different experience, but it's no less foreign to me. You see, a 25-year-old has no real memory of any president except Barack Obama. George W. Bush is just a name. They cast their first votes for Obama, and their second, millennials tend to skip the midterms. Obama was not a politician to them. He was the realization of everything millennials believed about the world and about themselves.
Yeah, that's why we're all so happy.
We were so happy with Obama. Mm-hmm. They are the first generation to have brought tolerance and inclusivity down to earth. They'll tell you so. They will not stand for racism. Patriotism is a minor concern because they think it wrong to favor the poor farmer upstate over the poor farmer in Africa. Everyone deserves to be happy.
Idiots.
Barack Obama in the White House was a vindication of their faith. In 2008, the youth vote favored him over McCain 66 to 31%. This was hero worship. Unlike his feelings of affection for Donald Trump.
The alpha dog daddy Dom.
The first black president, a guy who listens to rap and shoots hoops, like Mad Men, and knows how to deliver a punch. Wait, how is that like Mad Men, shooting hoops and listening to rap? Sorry. He says likes Mad Men, like he likes the show Mad Men. I thought he said like...
Yeah.
Okay.
Don Draper loved NWA.
He stops discrimination and frustrates haters who freeze the harass and victimize. This was what American leadership should always be. I like how he's saying this, like, in his mind, that's what American leadership shouldn't be. Like, he wants a president who just harasses victims and doesn't free people.
This is what we call the dialect right here. It was that you have this thesis and it must be met with an antithesis in the form of Trump, and you might not like all of it, but it's an historically inevitable process which will create a synthesis of Obama and Trump that will resolve all conflicts.
Donald Trump can impress them only as a throwback, a mean, atavistic clod. They don't care for Hillary especially. It's the loss of Obama that distresses them. Set the orange-haired tweeter alongside the cool, composed law professor, and a mighty void hits home. The millennials had a charmed political youth for 8 years. Now, as they see it, they enter their 30s with a guy who likes walls, guns, and threats. To my fellow Trump supporters, a word of advice. Think about the experiences that lie behind the rancor, and you might face as you dine and relax with your loved one this season. Arguments will not end well. Everyone has a life story, a wellspring of pain and triumph that won't yield easily to debate. Trump has violated them too deeply.
They know not what they do.
But you have a life story too, one that led you toward Trump, not away from him. When I first saw identity politics at work, I was a graduate student in English at UCLA in the 1980s. These were the years when the heritage of genius and beauty was recast as a bunch of dead white males. Western civilization slipped from a lineage of reason and talent, free inquiry and unsuppressed creativity into Eurocentrism. One group's advance at the expense of others, women and people of color. Art for art's sake gave way to art for politics' sake, for identity's sake. I spent my 20s in a grimy room reading Dante, Wordsworth, and Nietzsche, only to find when I went to campus that my intellectual giants had become objects of suspicion and derision.
Yeah, you can't find them on any fucking courses.
Again, he's having this like critique of like identity politics and academia, but I think it's just bleeding over into what an unpleasant person he is. And I think when he says that his intellectual giants are objects of suspicion and derision, I think he's projecting that
I spent all this time reading these big, heavy books, and now no one's even kissing my ass.
Yeah,
for it.
like I emerged covered in shit and dirt like fucking Pigpen from the fucking Peanuts, and expected everyone to worship me because I'd read some books, and they instead said, "Sir, your odor is offensive to me, and I need to leave the room."
When Donald Trump stood in that square in Warsaw and unapologetically hailed Western civilization, I felt a 30-year discouragement lift ever so slightly. That's my experience, and I'm happy to share it this season. Imagine this guy telling his like dumbstruck family members that Donald fucking Trump has like lifted his 30-year depression by hailing Western civilization. One of the most transparently probably the greatest Philistine who's ever been president.
Yeah.
A vile fucking Philistine.
Yeah.
Disgusting. A guy who has destroyed historic buildings and monuments in order to fucking just
a guy with
slap
I'm sorry, dude. You talk about beauty for beauty's sake and art for art's sake. This man made Trump Taj Mahal.
Yeah, this is a guy with probably the worst taste.
Yeah. Absolute
alive.
disgusting, gaudy shit.
Someone who has never read a book, has not read Dante, Wordsworth, Nietzsche, or any...
hasn't listened to a symphony.
Yeah.
A motherfucking guy who made up a fake...
McDonald's every day.
He eats McDonald's every day. He made up a fake Civil War battle for his shitty fucking country club in Virginia and put up a fake historic marker for
That's how much he cares about American history.
Yeah. And then when they said, hey, that didn't happen, he said, you can't prove it didn't happen.
It's fascinating to me how much people are willing to project onto power what they want it to be. Yeah. Like the degree of I mean, say what you will for the Pepes, I think they're just oblivious and are just like, oh, I welcome the apocalypse.
Yeah. Oh,
but someone like this is like just plugging their ears and humming extremely loudly and saying, no, this is great. This is fine, actually.
Because you've got these Poindexters who think that this gauche monstrosity, this Biff Tannen fucking just short-fingered monster, he is an avatar for, the Bellette and whatever. That's an insane delusion. Just as much as, like, regular MAGA chuds think that this diffident fancy lad, a germaphobe, would love to hang out with them and have a beer, even though he doesn't drink because he's got a type A psychopath.
Well, it was the same thing with Hillary too. It's just people look at figures of power and they just invent this entire fantasy about them, and then they circulate those myths over and over and over
like
again.
Hillary wants to go to to fucking margarita night with me and the girls.
Yeah.
We're gonna swap stories about our husbands. No, that's
none of these people
happen.
like you.
Absolutely,
none of them like you.
They like each other way more than they like you.
Yep.
Obama would like to smoke weed with me, though.
Yep.
He would like to chuming,
I think,
and do cocaine and turn tricks together for older men.
In the words of Adam Friedland, I think he did my vibe.
So I think with Bauerlein in particular, this is a guy who spent his entire career in academia, which is a fucking snake pit just in general, like regardless of politics, and probably feels slighted or passed over for certain things, or he thinks he should be a more figure of national prominence and importance as an intellectual or an author or something like that. And that just hasn't happened for him. And it also corresponded, like I've mentioned before, about a lot of these sort of right-wing academics who all of a sudden discover that feminism is a problem. I think it happened around the time that their grad students stopped sleeping with them. And I think that's where a lot of this antipathy comes from.
Like, maybe you need a family and some sort of legal contract to make them stay and fuck you. The one thing that is most revealing to me about this piece is how he implicitly endorses the idea that politics is purely tribal, emotional resentment with no core.
Well, that's the thing. It's like he's imagining these people throughout his academic career who are disgusted by Trump and feel pained every time they see him on the TV, and it gives him a certain sense of pride.
Yeah,
because he doesn't like them and they don't like him.
Exactly. He is made happy by their discomfort. And that is the engine of his entire belief. Because what it is like he talked about the way that these women identify Trump and the way he thinks about Western civilization. It's just this burgeoning, this growing emotional sense of resentment against the people who have caused you emotional distress. And then your politics is what you can do to make them feel bad instead.
It's nothing but a politics of Schadenfreude. There's no project. There's no vision.
Nope.
It's just...
Yep. It's just who I can make upset because they made me upset over the course of my life.
So, closing it out here, he says, but I want to hear about the personal experiences behind my relatives' politics, too. I can ask the younger ones next to me, what did Obama's 2008 campaign mean to you? And we don't need to fight about it. I can say to my mother, what's it like to be the first female real estate agent in the company? And avoid the disagreements of the present entirely. These questions are not an avoidance of politics. They get to the foundation of politics. And if conversations run in that deeper direction instead of to today's controversies, then this year's gatherings may in fact prove more meaningful and intimate than ever. So talk about Trump all you want at your Thanksgiving dinner. Just be sure to listen to what your crazy uncle, father-in-law, niece, cousin is really saying. So he's closing it out with this like plea for fucking tolerance or whatever. But if you're this guy's fucking niece or nephew or fucking mother, turn to him at the Thanksgiving table and ask, what did it feel like to have 30 years of depression lifted by a just transparent moron aping the Western canon in Poland? What did that mean to you? What does it say about your life that you're willing to debase yourself in print like this, pretending that he is some sort of avatar of intellectual greatness or a lineage of reason and unsuppressed creativity?
Yeah, ask him that.
And then curse right in his bitch ass face.
Just throw some fucking mashed potatoes right at him, have it bounce off his fucking bow tie.
Motherfucker.